Hey there, guitar fanatics. You probably already know that arpeggios are one of the greatest tools that a guitarist has for creating licks and lines to make up meaningful solos. I bet you even know a bunch of arpeggio shapes already. But what students tell me, and I hear it in their playing, is they don't really know what to do with those arpeggio shapes to turn them into cool sounding licks. They just play a shape over a chord that matches, and maybe they even play it really fast. But if that's all you can do, it can sound mechanical and uninspiring. If this is a problem you're having also, or you're just looking for some better arpeggio ideas, you're going to want to watch today because we're going to work through 5 levels of arpeggio soloing concepts, starting really simple and then getting quite a bit more advanced. We're going to go through it step by step and learn some cool licks along the way. By the end of the video, you're going to have some great ideas on how to create arpeggio licks that are both impressive and beautiful sounding. So grab that guitar, let's get right into level 1. So in level 1, we're going to talk about triads. 3-note arpeggios that are as essential to a guitarist as a hammer and a saw are to a carpenter. We're going to play triads over their matching chords, such as G major over G major, but I'm also going to show you a trick or two to make those licks more interesting. Let's take a look at how we come up with triads for anyone that doesn't know. And if you do know, this will be a quick review. Here's the G major scale on the low E string, which is appropriate because we'll be using a backing track today in the key of G. We get arpeggios by taking every other note, notes a third interval apart, and stacking them together. If we start on G, go to B, and then D, those 3 notes give us a G major triad. It's major because the middle note, B, which is a third away from the root of the triad, is a major third above the root. By contrast, if we start on A, go to C, and then E, we have an A minor triad. C is 3 frets or a minor third interval above A, so we get a minor triad. That note in the middle is minor. We can start a triad on any one of the 7 notes of the major scale, use this process, and we're going to come up with 3 major triads, 3 minor triads, and a diminished triad in every major key. That diminished triad is actually 2 minor third intervals stacked on top of one another. Now this info about the arpeggios in a key, it's going to come in really handy later when we start making up more advanced licks. So the first level of arpeggio playing, as I mentioned, is to play a triad over the same chord, such as G major over G major or E minor over E minor. That's a pretty simple concept. We just need some shapes to play. Let's use shapes with the root on the D string. Our backing track has the chords G, D, E minor, and C. And here's a G major triad with the notes G, B, and D on the D, G, and B strings at frets 5, 4, and 3. And if we jump up to the 12th position and play a very similar shape for E minor with the notes E, G, and B on that D, G, and B string at frets 14, 12, and 12. If we go to the 8th position, we've got a C major triad with the notes C, E, and G at frets 10, 9, and 8. And lastly, we jump up 2 frets to the 10th position, and we've got a D major triad with the notes D, F sharp, and A at frets 12, 11, and 10. And if we play those shapes over the chords of the backing track, it sounds like this. Now, as I said in the intro, those notes, they're correct, but they don't sound very inspiring. We're going to have to mix things up and add some spice to what we're playing. So in level 2, we're going to use triad inversions. We said the G major triad has the notes G, B, and D, with G being the first note of the root, B is the 3rd note we came to in the scale from G, and D is the 5th note we came to in the scale from our G root. Playing the triad in that order, G, B, D, is called the root form. But we can also play a shape where we start on the B note and play B, D, G. That's called the first inversion. And we can start on the D and play D, G, B. That's called the second inversion. As you can see, if we stay on those same strings, D, G, and B, playing the inversions allows us to cover a big chunk of the guitar neck. We're playing the notes in different order, we're moving to different spots on the neck, and that gives us different notes around and between each inversion that we can use. So that's what we're going to do. Let's get really crazy, add another note on the E string to each of the triads for our chord progression. And then we're going to use those in-between notes to connect two inversions and turn them into legit guitar licks. Starting with G, here's the root form with G on the E string added. Here's the first inversion at the 7th position with a B added on the E string. For E minor, we have these two shapes. Here's our root form. Here's our first inversion. C major, here's the root form. First inversion. And with D, here's the root form. First inversion. We're going to make up a little formula over each chord where we're going to play the root form of the triad up to that note on the high E string, and then the note on the E string between the top note of the root form and the top note of the first inversion. So for G major, we would play G, B, D, G, and A, and then slide into B at fret 7. That's trick number 1. Trick number 2 is to then slide up to the D, which is the next note in our triad after B, and then we're going to play C, which is a note outside of the triad, then descend through the triad with B, G, D, hit that non-triad C again, and finish on the B. Here are the two inversions of E minor, the connecting note being F sharp, and the extra added non-triad tone is A. For C, we've got the connecting note of D, and the added non-triad tone is F sharp. And for D, we connect with an E note, and the added non-triad tone is G. If we put that all together over our backing track, we get this sound. Okay, that sounded pretty musical already, and that takes us to the third level of our arpeggio soloing strategies. And that is to add one more note to build a 7th chord. It's the same process. Start with the root, skip a note, play the 3rd, skip a note, play the 5th, skip a note, and now we're going to play the 7th. With triads, that process resulted in 3 major triads, 3 minor triads, and a diminished triad in every key. For 7th arpeggios, we're going to have 2 major 7th arpeggios, a dominant 7th arpeggio, 3 minor 7th arpeggios, and a minor 7 flat 5 arpeggio. That diminished triad turns into the minor 7 flat 5. Let's start off simple, and we're just going to add the 7th to each root form of the backing track chords. G major 7 has the notes G, B, D, F sharp, and G. E minor 7 has the notes E, G, B, D, and E. C major 7 has the notes C, E, G, B, and C. And the D triad turns into D dominant 7 with the notes D, F sharp, A, C, and D. Let's do this. We're going to start each arpeggio on the D string, but we're going to start on the 7th interval instead of the root. So now our shapes look like this. Here's G major 7, E minor 7, C major 7, and D dominant 7. Let's hear those shapes over the backing track. Okay, now let's turn these 7th arpeggios into licks, and we're going to do that by adding a little scale sequence onto each 7th arpeggio. We're going to play the 7th, the root, the 3rd, the 5th, the 7th, and the octave like before, but then we're going to go up a 3rd above that octave, which is for our G, that would be a B note, and descend back to the 7th. Then go to the 9th, right above the octave, then descend through the arpeggio back to the root. Here's E minor 7. C major 7. And here's D dominant 7. Okay, let's try those licks over the backing track. What I love about arpeggios is because we're just playing every other note, they have a more open, prettier sound than a scale. And that quality gets accentuated when we integrate an arpeggio with a scale fragment or pattern like we did in our last lick examples. From those last examples, it's an easy stretch to start playing licks like this where I play a legato scale fragment and then break that up by descending through the arpeggio. And then finish things off with another scale fragment. That's a cool lick. And keep in mind, we've basically just been using one arpeggio shapes, and there's inversions and different shapes and voicings all over the guitar neck. The potential for making up licks, it's just endless. And that brings us to our level 4 strategy. Level 4 is going to open up even more options because we're going to do what we call superimpose some of the other arpeggios in the key over the chords we've been using. So think of superimposing as substituting. A great place to start is playing the relative minor arpeggio of the 1 and 4 chord in a major key, which are both major. That would be G and C in the key of G major, and the relative minors would be E minor for G, A minor for C. Playing those minor arpeggios over the major chords brings in the 6th interval, which is a great sound. Here's a lick where I'm going to play E minor 7 and shift into G major 7. And I think that sounds great. And if I was soloing over the backing track, the next chord's E minor 7, well, I might just play something bluesy. Then I might play that same lick over C major 7, but we're going to use A minor 7 and C major 7 this time. And then finish off over D7 with another bluesy lick. Let's try that strategy over our backing track. Obviously, if I was really improvising, I wouldn't use the same lick twice in that short a time span. I'm just trying to drill home the concepts here. We're on to level 5 of our arpeggio strategies. And this level, it's another strategy for superimposing. What we're going to do here is look at the notes that make up the arpeggio. For instance, G major 7, we had G, B, D, and F sharp. And we're going to substitute arpeggios from the key that have those other root notes, the B, the D, or the F sharp. In the key of G, the arpeggios built off of B would give us a B minor triad or B minor 7. Over the G chord, if we play this common B minor 7 voicing and then transition into G major 7, we've got an instant beautiful lick. I could play D dominant 7 into G major 7. There's another great sound. What's happening is that B minor 7 introduced an A note, which is the 9th of G, and the D7 brings a C note, which is the 4th of G. So we get a little different tonality each time. Practice making up licks like this. Pick one interval, say the 3rd, and use that arpeggio and then the arpeggio of the chord from the backing track that you're playing over to make up licks. We've already heard this B minor 7 and G major 7. Now G is the 3rd of E, so we could use G major 7 and E minor 7 over the E minor chord. E is the 3rd of C, so we'd use E minor and C major 7 over the C. And lastly, F sharp is the 3rd of D, so we could play F sharp minor 7 flat 5 into that D7. So there is also some larger 5 and 6 string arpeggio shapes for you to try out. I'm going to play those examples over the backing track for you. Okay, there's our 5 levels of arpeggio strategies. My whole approach to arpeggios, and I hope you're getting something out of it, is to try to be a little creative, to not just play the same arpeggio as the chord you're playing. Add some notes, superimpose some other arpeggios, but do something creative. There are many other tricks and strategies we could get into, but we're out of time, so we'll save it for another video. Do me a favor, like the video, subscribe to the channel, come visit me on Patreon. As I always say, work hard, play hard, have lots of fun with that guitar. I'll see you soon. Bye.